Christ's resurrection, you turn the disciples' despair into triumph, their sorrow into joy. Give us faith to believe that every good thing that seems to be overcome by evil, and every love that seems to be buried by death, shall rise again to life eternal, through Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you forever and ever. Amen. Donna Elaine Hale was born March 30th, 1938 in Deadwood, South Dakota, to James and Mildred Davis Hale. Until the age of 3, her family resided in Hill City, South Dakota, before making their home in Sturgis. It was in Sturgis that Donna was raised and received her education. At a very young age, Donna developed a passion for music and the arts. She played the clarinet, and in high school was honored to be in the All-State Band. Following high school, Donna continued education at Mitchell, South Dakota, at Dakota Wesleyan University, go Tigers, while earning her teaching certificate at DWU. Donna met and fell in love with Donna Meeker. Donna and Niall were united in marriage on June 6, 1958 in Sturgis. Donna began her teaching career in Chamberlain, South Dakota, where she taught for 3 years. Family then moved to Watertown for a brief time, and then to Britain, South Dakota, where she devoted herself to being a wife, mother, and homemaker. In the late 70s, she decided to continue her education, and in 1979 earned a bachelor's degree from DWU. She then taught grades K through 8 at the Sunset Colony until moving to Sioux Falls in 1987. Donna then worked for the Sioux Falls School District, teaching at Lowell, Jane Addams, and Oscar Howell Elementary School until her retirement in 2001. Donna was an active member of Hilltop United Methodist Church, where she attended Bible studies and helped coordinate the church pictorial directories. Donna was a gifted seamstress, often making her own clothes as well as her children's. She loved the Black Hills and its history. Donna enjoyed playing golf, painting pictures, sewing, quilting, knitting, crocheting, ribbon embroidery, scrapbooking, and reading. She was blessed with a wonderful wit and a great sense of humor. Above all, Donna cherished her family, especially listening to her children sing and spending time with her grandchildren. Donna was a loving wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, sister, aunt, friend, and educator who will be dearly missed. Grateful for having shared her life are her husband, Niall, Sioux Falls, children Alan and his wife Julie Meeker of Charlotte, North Carolina, Doug and his wife Terry Meeker of Willow Springs, North Carolina, Jim and his wife Pam Meeker of Jacksonville, North Carolina, and her husband Brian Gaines of Helotes, Texas, and Warren and his wife Lindsay Meeker of Rock Hill, South Carolina, 13 grandchildren, Holly and her husband James Sapienza, is that correct?
Sapienza.
Courtney Meeker, Lindy and her husband Zach Leonard, Jamie Meeker, Zach Meeker, Abby Meeker, Ella Meeker, Austin Gaines, Brett Gaines, Addison Gaines, Lucy Furry, Seamus Meeker, and Kendall Garvin Ramos. 2 great-grandchildren, Harper Sapienza and Noah Leonard, 1 brother, Norman Hale of Sturgis, South Dakota, and many other relatives and friends. Donna was preceded in death by her parents, James and Mildred Hale, and 2 brothers, Larry and Bruce Hale. Before I read the scriptures, I've got a Donna story to tell, and I've told the family and a lot of other people of Hilltop have heard it 2 or 3 times. But when my wife and I took a trip to Boston this summer, and on the last day in Boston, our rear license plate was stolen from our car, right in the church parking, right in the motel parking lot. And in order to get new plates when we got back to South Dakota, we had to contact the police. Policeman came and took down all our information, and then I said, okay, I have to ask. A plate from South Dakota, why would somebody take it? Would it be because they had a collection of state plates and they wanted one from South Dakota? I said, or could have been somebody taking it to put on a stolen car. And I said, but that's just silly, because a South Dakota plate in the state of Massachusetts would stick out like a sore thumb. And the cop said, well, you know, cops are not the brightest bulbs. Well, I related that story to Donna, and when I got to the part where I said criminals are not the brightest bulbs, she popped up with, like Methodist ministers. Just that quick. And Ann was there. We all about fell on the floor. But I just had to share that story. That was not the only time that I was the butt of Donna's sarcastic wit. The first time I went to see her at the cottages, the first place she was, I said, Donna, how are you feeling? And she said, with anybody else, I would say, with my fingers. I just had to share those. All right, scriptures chosen for today. From Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 and 23. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. John 11:25 and 26. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me will live, even though they die. Whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Hebrews 11:10. For she was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. Romans 5:1-5. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him, and he with me. I have one final scripture, and this is mine. I wanted to share this because I think it kind of epitomized Donna. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. Doug?
Thank you all for being here. It's been wonderful these past few days to visit with friends that we know, but also new friends that we found out that Mom and Dad have known over the years, and it's just been exciting to me and for us to see the impact not only that you've had for Mom and Dad, but what the impact that they've had on you. And so I'm proud to be able to stand up here and represent the family, share a few words, and I'm not surprised at all to hear stories that are like that Arlen shared. Mom had that dry sense of humor, but she loved nothing more than just to kind of sit in the background and enjoy the banter between, especially us kids. She truly did delight in us, and for that we're grateful. One story that I hate that she didn't get to hear was Jim recently discovered. He saw a photo of his certificate of baptism, and it said that his father is Lyle Meeker. So all the superlatives that you've heard about Mom, she was actually quite good at keeping secrets. But she was a woman of compassion, and because of that, in honor of her, we decided to allow Jim to sit with family. Well, this part I wanted to write down to make sure that I guess hopefully that I can get through this. So this is what I felt led to share. I was with some friends when I got the call from Dad that Mom had died, and it was actually my pastor and his wife. And when I shared the news with them, the pastor's wife, Stella, asked me to describe what my mom was like. And I told her about, and you all will appreciate this, I told her about Mom's West River stoicism. And I mentioned Mom's wit and sense of humor, and I talked about her creativity and her love of art and music. And then finally I shared that she was hardworking and persistent and resilient, and all the while never complaining. That was my mom. And of course, since then I've had time to reflect some more about Mom's life, and in doing so I was drawn to the passage in 1 Corinthians where I read these words. Love is patient and kind, and love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. And I think these words describe Mom, except for the irritability part. She did get irritated on occasion, but still was gracious. But and she endured. Those of you who know her, life is not easy. One promise that Jesus made is life is going to be hard. And so when it is, we ought not to be surprised. But Mom endured with grace. I believe she'd be the first to tell you that the reason she was this way was because of her faith in Jesus and because of her utter dependence upon him. And frankly, you'd have to convince her to admit that she was that way, but she was. And it was because of her faith and dependence on Christ. And throughout these past few days, I've heard numerous accounts of how blessed many people how Mom had blessed many people over the years. And I'm convinced that those blessings have not come from her, but rather from Jesus expressing himself through her. I believe that we've witnessed Christ in and through her. And she loved him, she embraced him, she pursued him, and she embraced her utter dependence upon him. And that's what we celebrate today, I believe. And even through much hardship, she remained faithful. Her focus was on Jesus first, and then on others. And to me, that was her legacy. And speaking of legacies, Dad, sorry, I forgot to spit out my gum. I just realized that you would want me to do that. It's my choir director. Not bad for speaking, but I'm about to sing, so I'll have to just don't watch. I want to thank you for modeling to the rest of us what it means to sacrifice your needs and tend to the needs of others. Not just for Mom, but also for the rest of us. A lot of these people that have come up to me and talked about the blessing that Mom must have had said the same about you. I see Jesus in and through you as well. Your kids and grandkids are beneficiaries of your faith too. We're never in doubt of your love and affection. And you have blessed us by showing us over the years how to live out the words you spoke over 60 years ago. For better, for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer. Well, maybe not the richer part. But you've persevered through good and bad times. And I have confidence that through faith in Jesus, you will continue to do so. And having said that, I want to share a song of encouragement that was written by Stephen Curtis Chapman back in the 80s. And it's called My Redeemer is Faithful and True. By the way, this microphone is taped onto the stand. So if it drops, we'll name it Treadwell.
Got some Vikings fans out there.
Vikings fans will understand.
Trifocals. As I look back on the road I've traveled, see so many times He carried me through. If there's one thing that I've learned this life, my Redeemer's faithful and true. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. My heart rejoices when I read the promise. There's a place I am prepared for you. If there's one thing that I've learned in this life, my Redeemer is faithful and true. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. And in every situation, He has proved His love for me. When I lack the understanding, He gives more grace to me. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. My Jesus is faithful and true.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Gould. Donna was a friend, a surrogate mother, surrogate grandmother, mentor, And for our purposes here today, a teacher. With one important lesson I want you to know. I think it's true that people are like books, and there's different chapters in the books, and even if you were part of her life, you probably were not part of all of her life, and there's always things to be learned at a service like this. In the early chapters, we learn about this woman, supportive, stubborn, caring, courageous, humorous, stubborn, encouraging, stubborn, industrious, and stubborn. There's actually some pictures of her as a young child, and it is, if you were to look up stubborn in the dictionary, that is the expression. She was extremely stubborn. Somebody, to curb her, actually got a book on how to train a stubborn child. And we're told that they threw the book away in frustration after trying all of its tried and true lessons. In the early days, she was a West River kid. And I did not know this. If you left a deer in her garage, she could dress it out for you. She could do the same with a pheasant. She could clean a fish. She could put food on the table. She could teach you how to do it, and then you'd be on your own. In the middle chapters of the book, we learn that she was an inflappable mother. Stoic, reserved, resourceful. Sure, it probably wasn't a good idea for Alan to play with the steel fence post. And his idea was to pick it up and then drop it down, pick it up and drop it down, so that when the triangular part of it poked into his foot and bled all over, she said, of course it did. Of course it did. And then she took the other kids and bundled them off to the doctor for stitches, and this is just the way that she managed her household with that stoic, humorous inflappability. She was one of the only people I know who could smile without ever moving her mouth. Yeah. She was a wielder of justice. Her weapon of choice was a spatula. She could set it hither and yon to dispense justice among family members, but always with a tender heart. She was an economic homemaker. Chamberlain, Watertown, Britain, Sioux Falls. How to feed a family with Spanish rice, goulash, round steak, and even though Niall denies it, beets. Served in front of Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom on Saturday night. The traditions of families. She would be there at meets, swim meets, kept a log of all the times. Not to report back to the children, but just to chronicle their progress and success. She taught them all to leave the nest. They all know how to cook, iron, do laundry. Not bad. I'm still working on some of those. And pray. They would call her occasion and she would say, you know what's right from wrong. I am praying for you. And she did. This I know. This I know. I was in the back third of her chapters, I suppose, when she was an empty nester, sitting right over there, Sunday after Sunday, talking with great pride and joy in the accomplishments of her children and grandchildren, showing us pictures, telling us stories, always with a punchline. She was so proud of her. She had enough love left over to be an excellent surrogate grandmother to my 4 daughters. Recitals, concerts, dinners, many conversations, and many prayers. But the most important chapter I want to talk to you about today is her last chapter. You know, courage is a word we like to have. I wish I had it. I'm afraid that I am more more accustomed to the word fear. As life would have it, last Thursday, I was at one of these kind of leadership retreat things at a church camp and all this stuff. And they say, okay, we're going to do the trust fall now. And the trust fall is me climbing a telephone pole. Now, I am afraid of heights. Well, they put you in one of these harnesses, but that don't matter. I am afraid of heights. And you have to climb to the very top of a phone pole. There is nothing to grab onto when you're on top of a phone pole. And then perched on something like this, you have to jump out. No. Oh, I fell off. I was terrified. So when I see somebody do courage well, I take notes. And this is her last lesson to you as a teacher to students on courage. Courage is facing your fears. Just as David faced Goliath, her fear showed up a brutal, ugly thing called ataxia. It's got a name longer than that. It steals your brain's ability to communicate to the rest of your body. It takes your pride. It takes your independence. It takes your mobility. It takes your speech. And it just keeps attacking. And I watched her face that monster with courage. And I took notes. She did not fight alone, as Doug indicated. She was a woman of tremendous faith. And just as David took smooth stones to battle the Philistines, so she took scriptures of weight and power. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? And she hefted that stone and she believed it. For she was looking forward to the city with foundations whose architect is the builder God. And she knew it. Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me. And she knew it. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And with rocks like that in her possession, she did battle with this giant, her greatest fear. And with humor. With humor. When you visit somebody at a hospice, there is a giant in the room that's invisible, and his name is death. And most will not talk about him. I noticed that the menus are fairly repetitive. I said, it seems like this menu kind of repeats every week. She said, that's all they need around here. Humor and faith and courage. Arlen thought of his scriptures, and there's many that bring Donna to mind, and I just can't help but think of that giant, that mocking Philistine. And Donna said, you come to me with sword and spear and javelin and weakness and humility and loss and movement and impossible diagnosis. But I come to you in the name of the Lord God Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you you have defined. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. All those gathered here will know that it is not the sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all your fears to you. And I watched her climb to the top of that pole, stand, and with joy throw herself through the barriers of time and death and sickness into eternity, into the loving arms of Jesus Christ. And I saw it. To be a witness is not to be smart or to know all the answers. It's to say what you saw. And I saw a woman of tremendous courage. And she taught me a lesson that I hope to learn from for the rest of my life. Her giant is ataxia. He is dead. I don't know what your fears are. I don't know what fears await me. What a great example that I plan to apply. Girls, this last hymn, when we all get to heaven, we talk about hope. You're playing, so get up to the phone. That was cute, but this way it is. It's 7:01 in your hymnals. Now I want you to listen to what I'm saying. Hope is not just, I hope that the Vikings win. Oh, I hope that the roof holds up in the storm. Oh, I hope that we don't get that much snow. The godly biblical hope is as real and solid as this podium, in fact, more so. It is a promise that will be delivered. God has never broken a promise. And this hymn is your promise. When we all get to heaven, I don't have a good voice, but what God gave me, I'm going to give right back. I wish that you would stand with me as we sing together our final hymn.